I, 30 female, just ended my 6-year relationship with my boyfriend, 28 male, after finding out he cheated, right after I finally finished med school, started my career, and thought we were building our future together. Turns out, my success made him insecure, and his betrayal was the final blow. I'm heartbroken, angry, and starting over at 30. I met my boyfriend 6 years ago. I was a med student back then, neck deep in anatomy books and sleep deprived from endless night shifts. He was already a high school teacher, stable, patient, a little sarcastic in a charming way. We met through mutual friends at a board game night, and we clicked almost immediately. We had the same dry humor, the same guilty pleasure playlists. We both preferred old movies to Marvel blockbusters and could spend an entire weekend building a puzzle or watching foreign cinema with subtitles. What began as playful banter and late-night phone calls evolved into a strong, steady relationship. He helped me through the most brutal years of my life, residency. The sheer exhaustion, the pressure, the self-doubt. I wouldn't have survived it without him. He always knew how to ground me. I could come home after a 28-hour shift with aching feet and hands that smelled like latex and disinfectant, and he'd have my favorite tea ready, soft music playing, and a warm hug that reminded me I was still human. We weren't a dramatic couple. We had our disagreements, who doesn't? But we were always good at talking things through. We listened to each other. We laughed a lot. We daydreamed about the future. There were promises made, not in grand speeches but in quiet moments, like when we picked names for hypothetical cats, or when we'd say, "when we lived together," as if it were inevitable. And now, finally, I'm out of residency. I have a good job at a reputable hospital. I have a stable income for the first time in what feels like forever, and with it, more time to breathe, to live, to share that life with the person who stood by me through it all. I was so excited. This was the phase I had dreamed of, the time when we could truly enjoy things together, not just survive them. I wanted to treat us, celebrate us. But somewhere along the way, something shifted. It was subtle at first. I bought a few new outfits, nicer ones, better tailored, professional. I wanted to step into my new role with confidence, to feel the part after years of scrubs and ponytails. When he saw me, he smiled, but there was something tight in it. He said, "Wow, look at you, Miss Fancy Doctor now." I laughed at the time. I thought it was a joke. But then it started happening more often. We went on a trip together, a little coastal vacation. Nothing extravagant, just a few days away. I booked a nicer hotel than we usually would have, something with a view, a good breakfast buffet, and a bed that didn't squeak with every movement. I was excited. I wanted to spoil us a little. But when we got there, he said, "Showing off that new doctor money, huh?" Again, I tried to brush it off. Maybe he was just adjusting. But it kept coming. Every small gesture seemed to get a remark. I bought tickets to a concert of a band we both loved, and he frowned and said, "Would have preferred a local bar gig, to be honest." I took us to a restaurant we had talked about for years, one of those someday places. We used to say, "when we can afford it." Now we could. The food was amazing, the atmosphere electric. But he complained about the portion size. I started to feel like I couldn't win. Every time I did something nice, something I thought we'd both enjoy, he'd find a way to twist it into something about me showing off or changing. It all came to a head yesterday. I gave him a shirt. Nothing flashy, just something simple and stylish that I thought would look great on him. He held it up, looked at it, then said with a smirk, "Of course. Now I have to dress better just to be seen with you." I froze. There was something in the way he said it, like a blade wrapped in velvet. I tried to keep my voice even. "That hurt," I said quietly. He shrugged. "I was just joking. Jokes are supposed to be funny, not hurtful." And then came the accusation. "You're being too sensitive." He wouldn't engage beyond that. He shut down, refused to talk more. So I left. I needed space. I needed to breathe. Now I sit here, trying to untangle what's happening. Because the truth is, I don't think I've changed all that much. Yes, my circumstances have. Yes, I make more money now. I dress a little better. I can afford nicer things. But I'm still me. I still want to play board games on lazy Sundays and watch art house films with subtitles. I still want to talk for hours about the dumbest things. I still want to share my joy with him. But it's like every small step I've taken toward a better version of my life has made him step back. Like he resents the very changes he once cheered me on toward. It's heartbreaking. Because for years I thought we were building something together. Now it feels like he's standing on the sidelines, arms crossed, acting like I've run off without him when I've only ever tried to bring him along. And I don't know what to do with that. I don't know how to talk to someone who won't admit they're hurting, or why. I don't know how to reassure someone who takes my success as a threat instead of a shared win. I want to be proud of where I am. I want to celebrate how far we've both come. But it's like my growth is a mirror for his insecurities, and instead of talking about it, he makes it my problem. I love him. I really do. But I'm afraid he doesn't love this version of me, the one who's finally standing on solid ground. And I can't go back to the version of myself who is always struggling just to make him feel comfortable. Maybe this is a reckoning. Maybe he needs time to catch up, emotionally. Or maybe I'm just seeing a side of him that was always there, lying dormant beneath the surface of our shared struggle. I don't know. But what I do know is that love shouldn't feel like guilt. And I shouldn't have to apologize for becoming the woman I fought so hard to be. I don't need grand gestures or expensive dinners to feel loved. I never did. But I need respect. I need partnership. I need someone who celebrates with me, not someone who tries to cut me down with passive jabs disguised as jokes. I wish I could say I felt something immediately when he told me. I wish I had screamed or cried or thrown something dramatic across the room like people do in movies. But I didn't. I just sat there, frozen, my hands folded on my lap, my mouth slightly open, staring at him as if he were a stranger wearing my boyfriend's face. I cheated, he said, not even looking at me when he did. It took a moment for the words to register, to pierce the fog of hope I had walked into his apartment with. I had come to talk, to heal, to reconnect. I was hurt, yes, but I was ready to work through it. I believed in us. I believed we were just having a hard time navigating a change. I believed in love being stronger than ego. I believed in him. And then, with one sentence, that belief cracked. He said it happened just once. With another teacher from his school. Someone I didn't know. He said it wasn't romantic. That he didn't love her. That it meant nothing. That it was about feeling desirable again. That he felt small next to me lately, less than. That the shift in our dynamic had shaken something in him. And she, conveniently nearby and available, had given him something he craved. Validation. A mirror that reflected back a version of himself that didn't feel overshadowed. I listened. I really did. Maybe I shouldn't have, but I sat through it. Every word. I let him explain himself. Justify the unjustifiable. I even remember nodding once, out of instinct more than agreement. Because the truth is, part of me still loved him in that moment. I loved him the day before. I loved him last week, when we went grocery shopping and he made stupid jokes in the cereal aisle. I loved him a month ago when we lay in bed talking about where we might live next year. I loved the memory of him supporting me through med school, through all those sleepless nights. I loved the future we were supposed to have. But that version of our relationship, of us, died somewhere between his confession and the moment I realized I didn't recognize the man in front of me anymore.
He said he was sorry.
Over and over.
Said it was a mistake.
A one-time thing. That it came from a place of pain, not malice. That he never stopped loving me. That he wants to fix things. But cheating is a deal breaker for me. It always has been. And not just because of some moral high ground, but because I know myself. I know the way my mind works. The way trust, once broken, doesn't knit itself back together neatly. I know that even if I tried, even if I stayed, I'd always wonder. Always question. Always flinch at the next sign of distance. And it wasn't just the act, it was the lie.
The choice.
The betrayal of everything we had built over 6 years. We had problems, yes. But I came to him with open hands, ready to talk, to work through them. I gave him space to be vulnerable. I said, I love you. Let's fix this. And he responded by dismantling everything with one confession. What hurts even more is that I had already been trying to make sense of his behavior. I had been twisting myself into knots, trying to empathize, trying to give him grace. I paid for dinners and trips and concerts, not to show off, but because I wanted to share experiences with him. Because gift giving is my love language, especially when those gifts are memories. I thought I was being generous, not patronizing. I thought I was making up for lost time, for the years we couldn't afford much. I thought I was bringing us joy. But now I see how long the resentment had been growing in him. How he didn't tell me, didn't ask for help or express fear or insecurity. Instead, he mocked me. He minimized my gestures. He turned my love into a punchline. And all the while, he was carrying around this secret, this choice he made with someone else. I remember telling him, early on, that cheating was the one thing I couldn't forgive. That honesty and fidelity were non-negotiables for me. He nodded. Agreed.
Promised.
He said he understood. So when he told me now, 6 years in, I felt more than betrayal. I felt foolish. Foolish for believing that our love was safe. Foolish for not seeing the signs. Foolish for thinking we were still on the same team. He told me he still wants us to work. That this could be a turning point. That he'll go to therapy, or we can go together. That it doesn't have to end like this. That couples survive worse. But I don't know if I want to survive this. Because what does surviving even look like? Me, second-guessing his every late night? Wondering if he's being honest when he says he's grading papers or meeting a friend. Avoiding the school where she works because I'll never see it the same way again? I don't want to become a paranoid version of myself, always watching, always waiting for the next betrayal. And I don't want to resent him, either. I don't want to stay and feel bitterness bloom inside me where love used to live. I don't want to live in a half-life of doubt, trying to claw my way back to a version of us that no longer exists. I loved him.
Deeply.
I still do, in that aching way that doesn't go away overnight. But love isn't always enough. It's not a band-aid big enough to cover betrayal. It doesn't cancel out the truth. And the truth is, he chose someone else, even for a moment. He put his self-esteem above our relationship, above me. He broke something I don't think I can rebuild. I think he noticed my lack of immediate reaction, how still I went, how I didn't flinch, didn't cry, didn't even move. That silence must have felt like a wall going up, shutting him out. Maybe he expected yelling, accusations, tears. Instead, he got nothing. Just me sitting there, stunned into stillness. So he started imploring, asking me to say something. Anything. And maybe part of me wanted to scream. Maybe part of me wanted to ask why, and when, and how he could. But in that moment, I didn't have the emotional energy. It felt like trying to start a fire in a rainstorm, pointless and exhausting. I had nothing left to give him. So I just looked at him and said, "Thank you for your honesty." And then, as calmly as I could, "But we're over." That's when he broke. It was like watching someone fall apart in real time. He started crying loud, messy sobs and begging, telling me I was the love of his life, that he made a terrible mistake, that he'd do anything to fix it, that we had 6 years together, that I couldn't just walk away. But I could, and I did. The thing is, when you're the one who's been hurt, deeply hurt, by someone you trusted the most, you enter a space beyond sadness, beyond pleading. It's a kind of clarity I wouldn't wish on anyone, but once you're in it, you know exactly what needs to be done. And all I wanted to do in that moment was leave. To get out of that apartment, out of that conversation, out of that chapter of my life. I stood up. I moved toward the door. And then he blocked me. I'll never forget that moment. Not because I felt afraid, but because that was when the anger finally hit. The deep, burning, blood-rushing kind of anger that comes not from hatred, but from betrayal. A betrayal so profound it shakes something elemental in you.
I don't remember exactly what I said.
The words blurred together, carried by adrenaline and heartbreak. But I made it crystal clear. I would not tolerate cheating. I told him he broke my trust, and no amount of crying or begging could rebuild that. That this was it. I was breaking up with him, and there was no going back. I was shaking. But I didn't yell. I didn't lose control. I was proud of that. I didn't let him take that last bit of dignity from me. I walked out with my spine straight and my head high. He kept messaging after that. The first wave was apology after apology. Then came the explanations, the justifications. Then the declarations, how I was the best thing that ever happened to him. Then the switch flipped, and the guilt turned into anger. He accused me of being cold, unforgiving, of throwing away 6 years over what he called a mistake. That was the final straw. I wrote him one last message. I told him plainly, "You're the one who threw it away, not me." I told him I'd be mailing him his things, and that I didn't want to hear from him again. And then I blocked him. It's strange how quickly silence can follow so much noise. After 6 years of shared everything, meals, jokes, TV shows, long drives, late-night talks, all that's left now is an empty thread of messages, a cardboard box with his things, and the echo of what could have been. Now I find myself in the quiet aftermath, in the necessary discomfort of starting over. I have to find a clinic to get tested for STDs, one that isn't affiliated with my hospital. I don't want to risk whispers in the corridors, or the heavy looks of colleagues who know too much. It's humiliating having to consider these things. But I have to, because he didn't just betray my heart, he betrayed my safety. And now here I am, 30 years old, single for the first time in what feels like forever. I don't even know what dating looks like anymore. Apps? Meet cuties in coffee shops? Honestly, the thought of navigating all that again makes me want to stay in bed with a bottle of wine and rewatch Fleabag for the 10th time. It's hard not to feel a little bitter. A little jaded. I invested 6 years in a future that vanished in a single conversation. I imagined us growing old together, having kids, teaching them board games, and exposing them to good music, laughing over old jokes and inside references, growing together. But he didn't grow. Or maybe he did, but in a direction I didn't see coming. Or maybe he shrunk while I expanded. I don't know. I do know this. I didn't deserve what happened. And I refuse to make myself smaller to soothe someone else's insecurity. I've fought too long and too hard to be the woman I am today. Strong, self-sufficient, generous, loving. I've worked through impossible nights in residency, held people's hands as they took their last breaths, sacrificed my own health and happiness for years in pursuit of a career that means something. I came out the other side bruised but whole. I will not let a man's wounded ego undo that. Love doesn't mean abandoning your boundaries. Love doesn't mean forgiving the unforgivable. And love certainly doesn't mean staying with someone who thinks your success is a threat instead of a triumph. So now it's about me. I'll take the time I need. I'll cry when it hits me in waves. I'll have nights where I miss him so much it feels like a punch to the gut. I'll remember silly moments and ache over the loss of someone I once knew. And then I'll remind myself, that version of him is gone. Maybe he never really existed. Eventually, I'll go back out into the world. I'll date again. Maybe clumsily at first, cautiously. But I'll go into it knowing who I am, what I deserve, what I will and won't tolerate. Because there's still hope. There's still joy to be found. There's still so much life to live, and I intend to live it fully. Not with someone who dims my light, but with someone who stands beside me, shining just as brightly. No, this story didn't get the happy ending I thought it would. But maybe that's because it wasn't the ending. Maybe it was just the turning point. And maybe, just maybe, the real happy ending is the one I'll write for myself.